G'day folks. This evening we've got something different yet again. This is the Parker-Hiscock, or sometimes Hiscock Parker, 22 caliber 5 round magazine for use with the 22 caliber converted Lee-Enfield rifles during the Second World War. So to paraphrase Mr. Skennerton, before 1915, the .22 inch Lee-Enfield training rifles didn't use a magazine. They were single loaders. They left magazines out of them, and the fired cases just fell out through the mag recess once they were extracted. But they realised that training needed to be had in magazine fire. So a special .22 magazine called the Parker-Hiscock was approved on the 21st of December 1915 for use with the 22 short rifles Mark III and the Patton 1914 conversions for land service. It was put forward in the list of changes along with the modifications of how it is to be done. Now, in service, these weren't really much chop. In 1915, when they were approved, A.G. Parker of Birmingham got a contract to supply 1,000 of them in June 1915. Then there was an order for 4,000 of them in January 1916, 1,000 in January 1917, and another 1,000 in April 1917. So that's about 7,000. And in 1920, they were declared obsolete and removed from use. As you can see, when I go through the motions with it, you'll see why. List of changes, 17,621. Magazine, .22 inch rifle Mark I. For rifles short .22 inch RF, Mark III and Patton 1914. Now, just to interrupt here, this is just a later converted number 2 Mark IV Aussie converted 22 trainer. It's not one of the Mark IIIs or Patton 1914 rifles. I don't have one of those at hand. Hopefully one day I will. But that's the rifle itself is just to show how the magazine works. Now back to the instructions. Introduction. A pattern of above-mentioned magazine has been approved to govern supplies as may be ordered. The following alterations are required to rifles short 22-inch RF Mark III and Patton 1914 when fitting the magazine locally. And it goes on to the bolt. The front bottom corner of the bolt head to be ground off for about 1/8 of an inch to an angle of 45 degrees. You can see that here. And the sharp edges of the bevel at the face and underside of the bolt head to be rounded off to a radius of about 0.03 of an inch. The front bottom corner of the hook of the extractor of rifles short 22 inch RF Patton 1914 will be beveled as shown. And then we go on. Now, I've already done this because it's quite difficult to do with only two hands. Instructions for use. Draw back the bolt of the rifle, turn the handle of the cut-off access pin to the 6 o'clock position and insert the magazine in the rifle, like so. Turn the handle of the magazine cut-off access pin clockwise as far as the fore-end will permit, like so. Sits up there like that. And then, I'll just move the rifle slightly so it's easier to see. We insert one at a time and rim first 5 number 1 .22 inch RF cartridges in the aperture on the right side of the magazine and see that they lie horizontally in it. So, using snap caps here because I'm inside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we press the cut-off axis handle down to the 6 o'clock position. 6 o'clock. The rifle then can be loaded by operating the bolt in the usual manner. And it says, note well, In operating, the bolt must be fully closed, as partial closing and then withdrawing and again attempting to close will cause double loading. And you can see inside the aperture there, you can see 1 and a part of a second round ready to go. And one thing that I've worked out fairly quickly with this magazine is you've really got to use a lot more pressure on the bolt when moving the bolt forward than you normally would, because it comes up against the resistance of that pin and then that mag follower thing. So we close the bolt on the first round. Then when we fire and open the bolt, that happens. See, this is one of the finicky things about this magazine. We'll try that again. Now the issue there was probably that I had the rifle at an angle. So now that it is fully upright, we'll try that again. So we've loaded around, chambered around, boom, boom, with a 22, yeah right. Open her up, there we go. And it's extracted and now it's sitting on top of the magazine there. So we'll try and load it that second round in and see if it pushes that first one out of the way. Yes, second one loaded. Open up, cycle it again, that one went well. Try it again. Bang. And here we go. And now that's it, because I already had the first one out because it was a dud, because I wasn't holding the rifle right. You could see some of the issues there, but yeah, it kind of works. So we'll try that whole procedure again. So I've got the rifle fully upright, turn the magazine cut-off access pin clockwise as far as the fore end will permit. Click, there we go. That has dropped that follower plate, I suppose you'd call it. 1, 2, 3, 4, get in there, and 5. There we go, that's 5 in there. Move the access pin handle down to the 6 o'clock position, down here. Pressure is holding it up, and we'll close, and we'll try 5 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's 5. And that worked pretty well. But from that you can actually see some of the challenges that it would have had. It's fairly finicky, it's a bit of a pain, and yeah, you can see even my fiddling around with it there, it wasn't quite as simple as one would hope. And continuing on, we have the instructions for stripping and assembling. To strip, remove the magazine from the rifle. Normal way, like so. Holding the magazine in the left hand, depress the auxiliary magazine with the thumb of that hand. Then, I'm going to cheat here and use one of my fingers. With the finger and thumb of the right hand, turn the handle of the cut-off access pin clockwise to the 12 o'clock position and pull outwards. The auxiliary magazine with the cut-off compression pin and magazine spring can then be removed from the case. So having stripped it, you can see just how it works. So you've got the magazine case here, which is basically a standard one hollowed out. Spring sits at the bottom of that, putting upward pressure against this internal magazine unit. So you can see here the internal magazine is quite a complex piece of gear. So what happens there, this magazine is loaded through that slot here. So I've put the cut-off access pin in here, and what this would normally be inside the magazine case, but just to show you how it works. When this is turned around clockwise as far as it'll go, and it sits up against the timber, you can see that it takes the pressure off here with this pin, drops this down, and this is when we load it with 5 rounds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we move that back around to the 6 o'clock position, and you can see what happens. It's now putting pressure upwards. So the pressure with this, as well as the pressure of the spring holding upwards here like so, pushes everything up forwards. Now when you close the bolt, what's happening is the bolt then will move forward and hit this plunger here, which pushes the top cartridge into the chamber like so. And then, not really easy to do it with your hand. I'll try it again. Pushing it forward into the chamber. And then when it reaches this inclined part, it will depress the whole magazine and keep moving forward while it is held against the spring there. And then when we release that plunger, it's returned by the spring. So then basically what we're doing, we're cycling the bolt again, push the next one in, clonk into the mag, and it's also moved forward and pushed this down so the bolt will go the whole way forward. Bam. And as the bolt moves back, this pops back up again, and well, it's fallen out there, of course, but it would normally fly out the side here. And so for the next 3 rounds, bang, And again, you can see why I'm using the snap caps here, because I don't really want to put a little 22 hole in my fridge, which is off to the right. Back to the instructions from the list of changes. To assemble, insert the magazine spring, long arm at the bottom and bend to the front. Like so. Insert the cut-off compression pin, that's this guy, in the auxiliary magazine flat end first. It's easier to do this upside down. And insert the auxiliary magazine in the case, fully compressing the magazine spring. Now, more fiddly. Here we go. That shows just how fiddly it can be. Try that again. I've inserted the spring in, as so. Then we insert the cut-off compression pin in the auxiliary magazine front end first, and insert the auxiliary magazine in the case, fully compressing the magazine spring. So that goes in there, flat end first, and this is quite tricky, so, beautiful. What we do then is turning the magazine upside down to keep the cut-off compression pin in position, insert the cut-off access pin with the handle at the 6 o'clock and sharply press home. Now 6 o'clock is the 6 o'clock when it's properly oriented, so there we go. So the magazine is now ready to go back in the rifle. So what do I think of the Hiscock Parker magazine? Well, it's an absolutely fascinating piece of kit, and I'm grateful to Nick for giving me the chance to share it with you all. But I can see why it didn't last very long. It's really a fiddly thing to operate. The cam, the lever action there, it's all very stiff, all of this kind of stuff. You've really got to go hard on the bolt to press the pin and load the round, and in doing so you're really putting a lot of force, which can go against the quite delicate guts of it, as it were, and cause issues. So I can see that it wasn't something that was suited for the rigours of wartime training. So it is very interesting. I'm sure there are different ways that it could have been done, but I know a lot of people have tried different ways of magazine loading 22 Lee-Enfields. Haven't seen one particularly helpful that works yet, but there you go. So thank you, folks, and yeah, more to come.